Hello, hello, hello.
There we go.
How are you? Sorry about that.
That's all right. I was on my own for about 20 seconds. It was very
No, I
exciting.
do apologise. I do apologise. A bit of teething trouble. I think that's to be expected.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
this is all very exciting.
Yeah,
So there's just a bit of housekeeping, I think, just for everyone to be aware. Everyone joining us. Hello, everyone. We're up to, it looks like 85 people watching, which is very, very exciting.
great.
What I do have to do is try and we've got a bit of let's try and get we're working it. This is all happening live, folks. It's very exciting. We've got to try and get order in here at some point because I've had to come in and kick order out, sadly, just so we can get started.
Sure.
Well, welcome, Eben Bolter BSC. This is our first live online Q&A, which is very exciting. Whereabouts are you? You don't have to give us your address, Eben, but whereabouts are you in the world?
It's in the BSc book anyway. So I'm in Whitney, Oxfordshire, so just like an hour west of London. So
Fantastic.
middle of nowhere, which is quite a nice place to be right now, actually.
Cool. And how is it? It sounds like it's pretty quiet around there.
Yeah, incredibly quiet. Yeah. It's just on the edge of the Cotswolds, so
Right.
we can walk into the Cotswolds, we're very lucky. It's very nice.
Fantastic. And but despite everything, all the craziness in the world, we're blessed with really quite beautiful weather. So at least we've got that.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a small little garden we can sit in, so we're trying to enjoy it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like early retirement. It's sort of forced time off.
Well, I mean, that's a whole Q&A in itself, isn't it? I mean, we could spend hours talking about it.
It's positive things, but yeah.
Yeah, we are. These are crazy times for all of us. So I hope everyone out there is staying sane and is healthy and safe. That's the main thing. So we're here to talk about a project that you did. When did you shoot this? Just out of interest.
We started shooting, I believe, in April 2019. I think it was April, and we shot until I want to say September. It was August or September.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, I was on the project for 11 months total,
right.
which is a long time in our game.
Yes.
6 months prep, 5 months shoot, essentially.
Wow, that's a long time.
It was.
So yeah, just to be clear, we're talking about a project that's actually it's not long gone to air. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. The finale I think was 2 weeks ago now, a week ago now.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the project Avenue 5, which was for Sky HBO. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
And it was how many episodes and how long were they? And
so it was, well, actually, to be candid, it was 10 half-hour episodes, but we had a fire, which I'm sure we'll talk about later.
Right.
We had a big fire at Leavesden, lost P stage. So part of the fallout from that was we lost an episode. So it ended up with 9 30-minute episodes for HBO.
Okay.
Yeah. It was very much, I'd say it was very much an HBO show. Sky have a sort of distribution deal, but it was an HBO project in terms of who we were talking to.
I mean, it was clearly an enormous undertaking in terms of its scale and ambition, because there's also, you did some location work, but you built, what was the percentage of build, would you say?
Well, yeah, originally the percentage of build was something like 99%. It really was. We had 4 stages at Leavesden, and pretty much everything was going to be built. It was the fire that actually forced us out on location. So for the 2 episodes I sent, the reason I wanted to send out the last 2 was episode 9 was where we were sort of forced out into location. So that's when we had to kind of think on our feet and reinvent locations and conceive them as potentially being on the spaceship. But yeah, the actual most of it was Leavesden Studios. They were there for about 9 months before I even started, and then 6 months with me. So the reason I came on so early was these sets, we were building a spaceship. Every single molecule of light and texture and everything else was built. So I needed to get in there as early as possible to sort of start lighting in the sort of conception stage of
Sure.
what it was going to be, you know, integrating light fixtures and everything else. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots to talk about in terms of that. So how, I mean, it was the first time you'd worked with, because you worked with a new gaffer, was right? And with Simon Bowles, obviously. So it's the kind of two
Yeah.
lines to talk about there in terms of how you integrated working with the new gaffer and like you say, is that you were in a relatively early stage to build in everything. So obviously working with production design is pretty key on that. So how did that? Did you know Simon, and did you and who's your gaffer on it?
So I had two gaffers. I had Jonathan Spencer did prep and the pilot with me. And then Aaron AJ Walters sort of took over for the rest of the series.
Right.
So he went to go do one of the Game of Thrones prequels. So
Right.
yeah, he did the prep and pilot, and then Aaron took over. So it was pretty much a 50-50 split between the two of them in the end.
Right. And had you worked with either of those before? I don't know what you're.
Yes, I've worked with AJ Walters for years now. Actually, I guess sort of 7 years. He's you know, one of the Walters clan. So
Right.
me and Gavin, I think a lot of people know.
Yeah.
And AJ was their sort of younger brother who sort of sparked for them for years and years. And I'm pretty sure AJ actually gaffered his first feature film with me, I think called The Hoarder, which was quite an experience 7 years ago. And yeah, I work with him as often as I can. I mean, you know what it's like. We work internationally a lot, and you know, I'm not at the stage where I'm able to bring gaffers with me. So I've been really lucky actually to work with so many great gaffers all around the world. But yeah, AJ's my London gaffer, yeah, in terms of the team, you know, when I was interviewed, so when I first, it came through my agent, the job initially, and I went to Leavesden to interview, and it was a sort of a 3-hour interview. I'd never really done anything like that before. It was an interview with Armando and the producers. Then we went to meet Simon, the production designer, who I hadn't met before. We walked around his office through all the concepts, all the design, all the designs, and then we continued the interview over lunch with the producers. So it was a real sort of stage by stage process of talking through everything and how we do things. So no, for a lot of the collaborations were sort of born on this project actually, which was unique, I guess.
Yeah. So sorry, how long had Simon been up and running with in terms of the design?
I think 9 months, something like that. Somewhere between half a year and a year he had been on it for. And they'd got to the point where they wanted to start building, and they needed me to come in with a gaffer as early as possible to just start talking about fixtures and how we'd integrate lighting into the set.
Sure.
So yeah.
I mean, and that's key with that sort of stuff, isn't it? Because you literally, if you're building it all in, I mean, and you were. So from what I understand, I mean, I could, from what you've told me about the way that Armando likes to work. I mean, we should talk about him a little bit before. Yeah. I mean, Armando Iannucci has got, you know, a fairly well-known history of some seminal British TV comedy, and this is, but he's also then went on and he did Veep and has sort of worked a bit internationally on a fairly large scale, and plus he. The film, what was the film that was based on
In the Loop?
Thick of It, In the Loop, of course, yes, that Jamie Kearney shot, which was fantastic. So he's kind of, and he's moved into his Death of Stalin and various things, and David Copperfield, which he did with Zach Nicholson, which were fantastic bits of work. But it's that, I mean, this was for you. What brought you in on the project, and what drew you to it, and what I mean, and how was it different, do you think, from TV, and how did that sort of that collaboration kind of work? Yeah,
so when it first came up, I kind of didn't know what to think, because I'm a huge fan of his work, like most people are. I think he's a genius, but in terms of who I am as a cinematographer, or who I'm trying to be, you know, I tend to shoot single camera drama, you know, films, TV series, and it's all quite serious, to be honest. So I haven't done comedy before, and I definitely haven't done multi-camera before. I mean, you know, I've done 2-3 cameras for action scenes, that kind of thing, but I tend to like to operate, I tend to like to shoot single camera, and I tend to like to light, you know, and sort of be expressive with lighting, you know, like we all do. So when it kind of came up that it was Armando Iannucci, comedy, TV, multicam, my initial reaction was, well, that's why would he want to speak to me, you know? And what I sort of came to understand, I mean, I read the script, I thought it was hilarious. I went to this meeting and I sort of saw the scale and ambition visually for the project. And speaking to Armando, he wanted to step outside of his comfort zone. And he, to be honest, he kind of wanted, you know, he wanted his cake and to eat it too. He wanted the flexibility to have multi-camera shooting, no rehearsals, just sort of essentially make it up as you go along, but you know, in a good way. And I don't say that.
Yeah, I think we all know quite a few directors like that. Yes.
Yeah, he wanted freedom and flexibility and all those beautiful things. And it is ultimately comedy. You know, that the thing about this project is that it all whittles down to the fact: is it funny or not? You know, it is a comedy.
Yes, absolutely.
So my job became how can I facilitate that environment for him and the actors to just do what they do, whilst at the same time trying to give him something a bit more cinematic, a bit more visually interesting, and something that for myself, I don't feel like I'm just sort of going, well, it's not about the visuals, let's just have some fun. I wanted to really, I was sort of interested in how can I do it? Can I shoot? Can I cross shoot? Because that's just a thing I've done so rarely, is get 2 cameras and properly cross shoot. I do every excuse that we all have,
of course,
why we shouldn't do that, you know, and I'm well versed in those excuses. So to actually go, okay, not just cross shoot, but let's do that twice over. Let's get 4 cameras going. I was interested in how would I approach that? Like, I don't know anything about that way of shooting that world. So what if I just took what I do know, the way I do work, and sort of put myself into that environment right out of my comfort zone? And I wonder what that would be like. I wonder what that would look like. So that's kind of, I came around to this just idea of sort of pushing myself and just trying something completely out of the box and different and new. And I thought that even if I sort of fail, it'll be interesting, because I'm not going to just do what I'm supposed to do. I'm not going to just, you know, Google how to light a multicam comedy and do that. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to just sort of go, what's my version of that? And how can I kind of bring a little bit of what I like in cinematography and slip it in under the radar whilst not getting in the way. So that became the kind of personal ambition.
Your aim. So was there, I mean, there's not many science, not many sitcoms that are set in space. So what were your references, and then how involved did Armando have with your side of it? So you said you kind of need to slip some of the cinematography in under the comedy, which is kind of right. I mean, it shouldn't lead it ever, but so what were your references, and then how did you talk to him about that, or was he just not kind of interested?
Yeah, no, he was. I mean, he's very cine literate. He's obviously an incredibly smart man. He's very cine literate. What we didn't want to do was reference anything else that was directly comparable. So there are all kinds of great sci-fi, all kinds of great comedy, but we sort of tried to, you know, we just wanted to sort of find something that was our own thing. Interestingly, and this you will laugh at this, but the one film he did mention really early on was Interstellar. And it was like you've got
there are IMAX. Worse references.
It's like you've got IMAX single camera all the way, like the most composed, you know, you've got Christopher Nolan, you've got Armando Iannucci, and what's in the middle. And I did actually really like that, because it was like, okay, he wants cinema, and he wants that sort of, you know, Interstellar does have these moments of kind of verite cinema where it feels like handheld, it's relatively grainy at times, you know, fractured lighting, all that kind of thing. So I just I put that into my kind of box of references. And we also looked at color a lot. You know, sci-fi does tend to be relatively desaturated, you know, stereotypically quite cool tones. And we wanted to push against that. We were like, well, let's go rich, let's go warm, let's go colorful. And, you know, these conversations would just sort of flow. I mean, it was very much a triangle of me, the production designer, and Armando, as it should be. of what about this, what about this, what about this, and we just sort of bounced these ideas around, and that just kind of formed something. And so, yeah, there were a few challenges. I mean, a few things that I sort of introduced into the mix that I wanted to just have some. I quite like rules. I quite like sort of having high concepts or rules. So I wanted to be able to distinguish different parts of the ship. So we had the sort of the front of the ship, which is the kind of vulgar, slick casino. I wanted to have that as one world. Then we've got the back of the ship, which is the sort of more grungy Ridley Scott alien kind of workings of the ship. And then we've got Earth, people back on Earth, mission control. Right. And so I really wanted to have a different feel for each of those environments, to, based on lighting, based on set design, obviously, and based on operating. We did go into zoom lenses and all those classic kind of Iannucci thick of it style punch zooms and all that down on Earth, but we made sure we sort of never did that up on the ship. It was much more sticks, Steadicam, prime lenses all the way. So yeah. I
mean, I've done a little bit of that kind of back in the day. Have done for I've all done a bit of that. I did a bunch of sitcom stuff, and it's it is because we at the time we were shooting on Alexa, and it does those zooms we shoot using short optimos, and those which I guess whereas that kind of that just previous to that, it would have been on, even if it was HD, would have been on kind of 2/3 inch chips doing using zooms, and rather than it being a prime thing. And actually for the speed of your turnover and what you've got to achieve, actually zooms are super useful for that, because obviously you've got it's like a variable prime. So it is good. And I guess what makes that obvious difference is having primes with a specific perspective and a depth of field and stuff.
Yeah, I thought the limitation of primes would sort of force us to be slightly more cinematic and slightly more thoughtful on the ship. And there were various sort of tactics that I tried to introduce to sort of make it easier. And the classic was, let's start with a wide, but a wide would turn into 4 wides.
Okay.
We all do it, but let's light the wide. And really, actually, just to go back a bit, that is something I try and do always, is I do try to light wides. I think we probably all do, but I love to light the room for a wide and then work my way in, and hopefully not tweak too much. I do quite like the challenge of lighting a room and then just tweaking as you go in. And this just sort of tested that to the max. It was, can I light the wide and the wide from over there and the wide from over there at the same time?
Wow. And
then when we jump in, is that going to work on that close up, and that going to work on that close up, and what if they do that, and what and it became about building in a bit of safety while still trying to have a little bit of color contrast and a little bit of light contrast. So it was always just sort of balancing things out as best I could.
Yeah. So did you? I mean, that takes us to takes us almost to kind of operators, because it sounds like you're almost running a live show. But just start with what cameras and lenses did you decide on, and was there a reason that you did that? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So when we were in prep was when the Alexa LF was available, and the 65, and me being a DP, I was like, oh, fun, exciting, new things, let's try that. And so we tested the LF. We did all kinds of tests with the LF. But actually, HBO had this incredible note. And I know, we all do this. You shoot tests, and sometimes you get these really kind of crazy notes that it's hard to understand. But they had one of the best notes I've ever received. That they said, like, the advantage of the LF, really not the only, but one of the biggest advantages of the LF is the more shallow focus. And when we've got these huge 250-foot sets, why would you want shallower focus? And it was kind of like, yeah, you're so right. So we ended up with the Mini for reliability. I've shot exclusively, ARRI cameras for a long time, 5 years, 6 years. It's all about the color for me, and I just know them. So the Mini seemed like it would be the most reliable, best color, and just not get in the way. It's light for handheld, it's quick for Steadicam. It's just it's a camera we just know and love. And I ended up on the Leica Summicrons. I'm a big fan of the Leica glass. So I've shot sort of, I think of my last four, three of them have been Leica. We decided to go chron instead of lux for the size and weight. And I knew I wanted to be around a 2.8 sort of to a 4 even stop wise. So I just didn't need that 1.4. So yeah, that's what we ended up on.
That's very cool. Okay, so that moves us then, I think, into quite nicely into operating. I mean, it feels like I know you've mentioned this before, but it feels like you were running almost a live show. Because I guess if you weren't operating this and you were running 4 cameras, that you were. I mean, were you almost like studio directing? I mean, how did that work? And then tell us about your operators, because obviously I think that you're having to rely on them almost as autonomous beings, because they have to. I mean, you can't, you can't light, like you said, you can't light for every angle, so you need people to help you out a little bit on that. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, absolute baptism of fire. I'd never done that before, genuinely. So it would be our usual setup. I mean, I say it was 4 cameras all the time. We had 4 cameras available to us at all times, and it really was a case of how many can we get on every setup. So if it were in a tiny room, occasionally it would be single or 2 cameras, and it would sort of build out from there. But a lot of the time it was sort of 3 to 4, and I just had as big a monitor as I could get, split into 4. I had the open comms system, whatever that's called, and it really was a case of, I mean, at its worst, I guess, I'd have the director next to me with several different directors, and some of them would say, "Oh, B camera, make sure they get this," and I just have to say, "B camera, pan to this," C camera, go to that. And you really do just have to sort of scan the screen, and it's just something I had to just figure out as I went along. I've got no idea if I'm any good at it, but it was just I had to do it.
Well, it's kind of fun, isn't it? I mean, I've done a little, or I've done been one of the cameras in multi-operating, and I've sort of done a little bit of when you're obviously calling it, when you're watching 2 cameras or something. And what I found is that, or what having done a bit of studio stuff, is that when directors are basically telling you what all the cameras are doing, and it means that as you as a camera knows what everyone else is doing, so you know that what you're doing is either right or that somebody else has got the shot that you're thinking of. So it's a kind of a different skill, but it's kind of exciting as well. It's kind of, there's that live aspect to it. It's a bit of the seat of the pants.
There is a real adrenaline to it, and it also just gives you this sort of energy. You feel this kind of live wire of these actors might do something. He might improvise something incredible. We might get a reaction, and is a camera going to kind of hit that improv, pan across, and then get a reaction? And if once it's kind of, you build up a kind of, all the operators build up with, okay, they're liking this, and they start to kind of throw these things in themselves. So it's kind of like an orchestra, actually. And when it's really working, it really is. It's amazing. There's a lot of adrenaline to it.
And there must be a groove as well. I guess it's everyone. Absolutely. After a couple of weeks, everyone you start getting, like you said about the rules, is that everyone starts getting a sense of the rules. And a sense of the way it's all going and those energies. So everybody starts. It's good fun when it's all up and running.
Yeah, exactly. And a typical kind of setup would be, say there's 2 people talking, nice and simple. We would have over and over cross shooting. We'd then maybe have 1 more over on a tighter lens, and then we'd have a camera in the middle that we'd call swingles. So swinging singles. So that would be bang, 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 and it's the swingles where you get those moments of it's watching a tennis match, but you don't want to follow every word. Occasionally you want to follow a reaction, or you want to stay on a reaction, and it's that's the hardest one, I guess. That's the one that you really have to kind of get into a groove.
But also you get that with, well, I guess it's kind of knowing, again, that's part of the groove, isn't it? And it's knowing the script, and it's knowing, and actually working with cast, I guess, if they'll almost wait for you to hit them for a reaction, or but also you can operate that safely, because you know that actually, even if it doesn't get caught, that you've got at least 1 camera that's covering it anyway, so it's kind of safe. I've been leaping all around my my questions, and not in order at all.
Right.
Where are we at to? Hang on a second. So So yes, this so my well, that was my big question. Is that did you? And it didn't look like you did. Having said how this kind of the pace that you're moving and the way that Armando wanted to cover it was, did you have any fixtures on the floor? It looks like you barely did, and it was all kind of, you know, it was all or the fact that you could bring your kickers up or keys or whatever. How did that? Did you have anything on the floor?
I mean, once or twice. Yeah. I mean, I was always, you know, the constant sort of self-imposed stress was how, because I was very aware that I've got to constantly make compromises. You know, I have to cross shoot, I have to be able to give them flexibility. All of these things are compromises. You have to kind of build in safety. But I was constantly sort of looking for any opportunity to introduce a hard light or introduce anything that could just elevate it visually that wouldn't get in the way. So I was constantly looking for an opportunity to put a lamp on the floor or whatever. But the speed we were working and the prep we had done meant that I just had so many sky panels everywhere rigged, you know, hidden every which way, so that I could kind of do all of that without having to put a lamp on the floor. So it would be, okay, they've ended up here, stood wherever the hell they are. I think we can get away with turning off everything behind the cameras from behind the audience, and just to get some near side contrast. And I think we can bring this thing up and this thing up, and we can dim this top light, and that's going to give us as much shape as possible to where they've ended up. And, you know, I'd be able to do that occasionally. Then cut to take 2, and they decide halfway through the scene to turn around, and I get called out, right? So that, it was always about, what can I get away with? It really was.
Yes.
So it became about, okay, if we put the monitors here, let's sit the director here, we get the monitors here, let's turn these lights off, and voila, we've got a corner of contrast. And it means very unlikely we're going to look in this direction, you know? And it was always little sort of tactics like that. And yeah, we had, so I had, in terms of integrated fixtures, I wanted, you know, Simon Bowles had this incredible design where there were no straight lines on the ship. Everything was a curved surface. Every wall, everything was a curve. And so he designed all sorts of different integrated fixtures. Sort of, we had these cloud lights, we called them, these sort of
those,
whatever the hell they are. Then we had the kind of more strip lights everywhere, big pillars. All of that all had the same thing in it, which was LED, RGB, WW strip. Just tons of the stuff. So we had 5 kilometers of LED, RGB, WW strip. I ordered it from Japan, found this new, you know, source, really good stuff. And we could, you know,
did you test that for color before? Did you get a chance to test that?
Yeah, so luckily I had a very good, you know, practical gaffer, practical HOD, whatever, you know, Jamie. And he had all kinds of different things to test, and there was one clear winner that was the brightest. It had the best color flexibility. It was just really great stuff. It was the newest, so we just had to order absolutely tons of the stuff from Japan, and then every fixture had that in it. So, you know, we were linked up via iPad. We were running Windows. It was like an emulated Windows type setup. I did get all the details of what it was, but I didn't entirely understand it. But it meant, from my side, I could just say, okay, that cloud light.
You're frozen. Or is it just me? Is that just me that's frozen, or is it?
Oh, there you go.
Oh, there you go. Was it me or was it you? Eben's frozen.
I don't know. There's some chat.
Eben's frozen. Everyone's good now. Excellent.
We're all back.
Well, I can see the chat is furiously going. Hello, everyone. I'm glad you're all still here. That's brilliant.
It was Eben. I see. There you go. It was me.
It was Eben's fault.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear it. Shall we have a quick go at the screen sharing thing? Shall I show
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we've been practicing this, and hopefully this will come off. But Eben's we've managed to try and share some of the behind the scenes pictures that Eben has got. If you take the notice of whatever he's got on his desktop, because I think he's closed all the secret stuff.
Yeah. Has that worked?
It is working. Yeah, I've got it full screen now.
And can I go through them though? No, I can't. Okay. How can I go through them?
Is it just not left and right on your?
It didn't work.
Once it's no.
Let me. If I full screen preview, I think it will. No. Wow. Okay. Well.
Oh, that's weird. Or down it, up and down, up and down.
That's what I was doing. Okay. Full screen. Up, down. It's it. Okay. Well, is that?
Oh, it's my advice from Mark Purvis there. He's select all with spacebar and then arrows, because then it's like scrolling through a PDF. So if you select them all.
Ooh, it's gone to the bottom though. God, I'm feeling like.
I know, it's like 101, isn't it here?
Yeah, I mean, okay, that's select all. And then spacebar, right, to preview, but that's taking me there. But is that going to let me? Yeah, okay, cool. It's gone into funny order, but we can make that work.
All right, there we go.
Okay, cool. So yeah.
I love this. These are great shots. These the side by sides.
Yeah, I mean, so as you can see, this is looking at our biggest set, and it's only actually looking at sort of less than half of it. It's very hard to actually describe how big the set was, but essentially behind me, behind the camera, you've got the same again. In terms of scale. Wow. There's a glass elevator there that was working, so you could kind of start up on that upper platform, you know, set a whole walk and talk scene, get into the elevator, go down the elevator, come out again, back up the other side. You know, you could walk and talk this thing for sort of 5 minutes.
Wow.
So that we needed the ability to be able to do that. So the pre-lighting stage was essential to that. I did a 2-week on-camera pre-light. I mean, I had pre-lighting before that with you know, gaffer and everything else, but I had an on-camera pre-light, which was something I really pushed for 2 weeks. And what I wanted to achieve in that was giving the set different lighting states, because as you can see, there's a lot of white on the set. And it was a bit of a personal goal that I didn't want that white to ever be true white. I always wanted to kind of play with it. So it's always going to be a little bit warm or a little bit cold. And so the idea came up that the ship itself would have different modes. So, right, you know, you're in space. There's no weather. You know, what dictates data? What dictates the time of day? So the ship itself would have kind of a day mode, an evening mode, and maybe a night mode. And so that's what we set out designing. So this was our kind of day default look. This is still in prep, so there's a few things not finished. This was the evening mode, and this was the night mode. So very sort of basically, we had sort of 3 standard looks to go between, just to kind of orientate the viewer to time of day, and just give it a bit more variety. You know, we just didn't want the set to always feel the same.
And what is that? Just flick through those again. Is it just color and then keeping highlights, but then dropping some of the guts out of it? And I'm guessing that you had a big old softbox on the top of this, so you could drop the ambient down.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a combination of things. It was it's very much color contrast, color and contrast. The two things really, I suppose. So the idea, day was the sort of the brightest, the most neutral colors, red the cleanest. I did want to have a little bit on the warm side though. This was evening, that just things warm up. There's a slight bit less fill, a bit more contrast, and then night we wanted to do something completely different. The idea was to kind of introduce the idea of moonlight, to have a kind of sort of silvery blue ambience as if it's moonlight. And one thing to say as well is that the only real light source we had from off the ship, you know, was the sun. But the set was so big in the studio that we decided quite early on to not use sunlight pouring through windows, because we wouldn't be able to get backed off. You know, it wouldn't make sense. So we decided that the front of the ship had some sort of e-glass, you know, that would filter out the sunlight. But the back of the ship, the kind of grungier end of the ship, we allowed sunlight to pass through windows back there, so we could have a bit more with sunlight. So yeah, that was the sort of the pre-light which really gave us the foundation. And
again, so just the key stuff on horror in the foreground, is that looks like that's something on the floor, or is that something that you've got rigged? I mean, just so that next shot, you've got 360s and 60s up in the air. Yeah,
so that big soft light there is actually one of our pillar lights. One of those in shot. So Yeah, okay, we'll see behind
Oh,
her,
okay.
at the
Right.
bar there. It's these big pillar lights. So all I did here is just orientate where we were standing so she could
Right.
use that as her key light. And you get this
Right.
big,
Right.
soft, controllable light. So yeah, that could have been, a book light or whatever on the floor.
Yeah.
But we just used the fixtures. And yeah, that quite often in the blocking of things, it was me trying to sort of manipulate where they could stand.
Yeah, we've all been there. Absolutely.
Some justification for, if you see behind her actually here on the upper deck, there's a kind of Saturn type light on the ceiling, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
And quite often if we were setting a scene up there, it'd be, can we put them under that light? Obvious stuff like that.
Yeah. Sure.
There's
How did that go
from,
down? That sort of stuff. How did it go
you
down?
know, it just depends. Pretty well. They ultimately, for all the flexibility we tried to give, this was set in space. So there's all kinds of VFX, and there were restrictions that couldn't be avoided sometimes. If we were doing a zero gravity spacewalk, it was pretty much one camera at a time because it had to be, just for safety, for everything else. So
Yeah.
There were occasionally restrictions. We just tried to kind of keep them to a minimum. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this shot, I think you can see my fixtures there.
Yes.
The softbox. There's sky panels everywhere. And yeah, this is lifted from the show, but pre VFX. So.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I mean, knowing that all of those things are the limitations there of the set. I mean, and they're not many, but the fact that you can full well that that's all going to be replaced.
Exactly.
Gives you all of that. You can actually bring your softbox down, and you can really sort of fire stuff in, knowing
exactly.
with the safety that it's all going to get. Apart from the guy on the left who needs a bit of roto.
Yeah. Well, that was a big point of contention. Was it going to be blue screen or black screen? And we ended up with black screen with actually sequins stitched into it, so it did occasionally catch the lights and look like stars. So there's a few shots.
Oh, I see. So it could have been it could have just then had glass, or in terms of what the VFX would be, it could be a sky dome type affair.
Exactly. Yeah, they did have to put glass into everything. Yeah, but
right.
On this big set, we did decide to go black instead of blue or green in the end for various reasons. So yeah,
right.
And I just spotted here. This is my key grip for Eben Brown standing in.
Right.
I don't know if he's listening, but he might be. And this was actually the set in a kind of party mode. We didn't actually ever use this, but this was just putting every single light on the set into a kind of show-off disco mode.
Right.
Is this a video? Is that going to play? Oh, here we go. Tech again. I'm hesitant. Oh, there you go. There's going to play. So there. Is that working?
It is. Oh, it's very.
There you go.
It's a little juddery. Juddery? It's allowed to be. But that's just showing the scale of the set just in one pan. I mean, and how small those people are. I mean, it's an enormous undertaking. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
And it's the whole and the old disco S60 softbox.
Exactly.
That's incredible.
Yeah. There you go. Lots of fun.
Yeah. I mean, and so you had literally. I mean, you talked about having a iPad control. I mean, and obviously that wireless DMX and that, and you being able to pinpoint absolutely every fixture. Is that right?
Absolutely right. Yes. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's pretty impressive, isn't it? And but I guess really becoming, these days it's becoming more and more standard. But seeing it on that scale is always impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it had to be broad strokes, at this size. But you can probably see on this shot, I've got a 360 there in the middle backlight that's warmed up relative to the ones to the left, and I was always trying to. I didn't want to ever sort of sit at a perfect color temperature where everything's perfect tungsten, the camera's at perfect tungsten. I was always looking for something cooler, something warmer in shot, and to have sort of color contrast at all times. And this actually jumping to the back of the ship is just sort of the other end of things. So this was that more grungy environment where this was all about sort of shooting hard lights through grills and having all kinds of lights, that people could walk through different shapes. this was my second gaffer at AJ Walters standing in.
Right.
And yeah, as you can see here, this is where I could sort of be a lot happier on a photographic level with sort of what I was doing in terms of giving it a lot more shape, and sort of just this is more what I'd sort of normally do. But still trying to give an environment that works for everything I said before.
What was in those? Because I think I've seen those industrial tube holders. I think I might have used those myself. What have you got in those?
Well, we went. So we got all of these sort of rugged looking fixtures, which again Simon Bowles was amazing for. But I would put an Astera in it. So pretty much all of those are still LED. It's the Astera LED,
yes, absolutely,
color controlled. And that could have been a fluorescent with a kind of steel blue or peacock or whatever, gel, but for speed, for flexibility.
Oh, absolutely. It's a no-brainer, isn't it, these days? Asteras have changed the way that I work completely.
Yeah. Do you want to keep going?
That looks like a terrible electrical accident.
Well, this is playing with our gravity shift in prep. That's my Steadicam A-camera operator, Doug Walsh, who's keenly standing in there. But this was a set that actually gimbaled, not quite 90 degrees, but sort of just past 45 degrees, I think. So
I see. I've only just noticed the telephone there hanging out. Right, okay.
Well, this is in prep and it isn't gimbaled yet. So that telephone is actually being held by wire.
Okay, all right.
Just to demonstrate what it would be like when it did gimbal. But yeah, and this is actually showing, this was from outside the ship looking in, and it was just playing around with sunlight. So here's with the sun on, here's with the sun off. And we ended up sort of somewhere in the middle. And this is from a costume test we did with the cast standing in, with the daylight.
It's always about, and I think part of that reality, of trying to find a reality in that and trying to remove it from the studio, is like you're saying about having different fixtures that kind of are a bit errant. I always really enjoy what looks like errors, when you get a bit of a bleed, or a bit of something that's coming out of the side of a lamp. And more often times I leave that because it's actually quite natural. If something might just catch on somebody, or it's just a glint somewhere, and once it's got a bit of smoke in it. Actually, that's interesting. Did you use, not that we'll talk about the fire, but did you use any atmosphere?
No, I only used atmosphere on Earth. That was another, because of being in space, we wanted it to have this sort of sterile feeling air, essentially. So we decided, and for how much VFX there was, we just sort of decided it would be fair enough to not have any atmosphere in space. Down on Earth, we really pumped the rooms. A sort of unsaid joke was that they wanted Earth to feel incredibly hot and sweaty. There's a lot of sort of things about what's happened to humanity over 40 years in the show that are relatively unsaid, and one of them's the weather. So he wanted everyone to always be sweating on Earth and have just sunlight pouring through windows. So the 18Ks came out, we had loads of atmosphere, and down on Earth, it was a lot more, easier, frankly, to just pour light through windows and sort of play with the warmth.
I guess the other thing that comes with atmosphere, as much as we all love a bit of atmosphere, is that it's about managing that. And if you're moving at speed, then, I mean, if you've got one big studio, I guess it's kind of easier because I say that, but it's in terms of maintaining levels. But also, you're after contrast, and actually a lot of times our atmosphere is obviously pulling down your contrast. So if you've got all these kind of soft boxes and soft kickers and soft keys, then actually you want more contrast rather than trying to flatten it out.
Yeah, exactly. It was the VFX didn't really want the atmosphere. I wanted as much contrast as possible, and it just there are enough things that made me thought, let's just not have it. So that's what we decided. Here's a location actually. So I did have atmosphere here. Not sure you can tell, but this is actually McLaren. This is McLaren's head office, I guess, somewhere in, I think, Hampshire, was it? I think it was Hampshire. This was pretty much as we found it. We've got our graphic up there on display, and this was it lit. But
Wow, it's
again,
a bit of a. Is that their lighting rig then? It's a bit of a. It's a bit of an Arthur Max. It's a Doctor Strangelove.
yeah,
Um,
it
which is
really is.
that's a gift. That's amazing.
Incredible. Yeah, I mean, we had their in-house desktop, and we were able to do everything you see there using their fixtures. I'm pretty sure I probably had a sky panel off camera right here, just to sort of pick out Rav a little bit on the stage. But
Right.
you know, one lamp basically. Otherwise, that was another room that was just lit. But this time on location. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and this actually, just to point out, this was a cool thing about this, this was a 3D printed set, which I think is a sort of first, I'm pretty sure. I mean, this was more for Simon Bowles, the production designer, to talk about, but he designed these sets in 3D. We actually had a virtual reality, Oculus Rift that we could use to sort of walk around the sets and look at them in VR. And then the printing process, he was actually printing these with a 3D printer, big pieces of polystyrene that were then reinforced and slotted together like a puzzle.
Wow.
So that's a 3D printed set. Yeah.
That's the only 3D printing I've seen is worked on a show and they were making robot parts that were probably about this big. So it would have taken months and months. That's impressive. But I guess becoming more and more normal, especially with that kind of sci-fi stuff, is that you need to make something that's utterly unique and unfound.
Yeah.
As it is, and so all that sort of stuff needs making, or you end up with the age-old things that they've been doing for years, which is ice cube trays and fairy lights poked through which works. Stuff still works.
Absolutely, yeah. I think for this, a lot of it was about the curvature. He wanted to just have everything having this curved shape, and I think the 3D printing really helped with that a lot. Yeah.
But a lot of white, as you said. But I guess that's I mean, narratively, I guess that kind of works because it's that fresh new, I guess going back to references, is that there isn't anything quite like this. And when you think of things that are cruise ship based, actually all of those things are very new and very clean and very sort of customer based, and it's not it's not all alien, is it, as much as we'd like to. So I guess but you've already said that kind of idea. You've got the front of house and the back of house, so you did get to do a little bit of that.
It was very much something I struggled with, because with all of the things I said about having to light for multi-camera, cross shooting, everything else, white walls was like another element of sort of almost nightmare. I'm one of those. I'd love it if there wasn't a single pure white anything on set. It should always be a bit off, have a bit of something, and to have so many white walls was something I really struggled with initially. But then I just leaned into, that's what it is. It's a sterile, slightly sort of vulgar casino cruise ship environment, and that is what it would be, I guess. So this room in particular was actually a multi-faith cathedral type room. So again, we really could go with the white here. And I just decided that it would contrast the more interesting stuff at the back of the ship even more by having it so sort of plain, I guess. But yeah, we did try to warm it up. That was the main thing. I did want that white to always feel a little bit on the warm side. This set is probably one of the cleanest whites because it was the multi-faith room. But in general, they were usually quite warm. I'll just buzz through, see if there's anything else.
I guess the biggest thing for all those white walls is then skirting. So I mean, and if you can't do that on a shot-to-shot basis,
exactly,
is trying to skirt, like you said, those the cloud fixtures. Is it trying to skirt those to try and darken the walls off a bit?
Always tried to, but there just wasn't. I used egg crates and that sort of thing on the sky panel. So I was always trying to kind of hit people and not the walls, but just the ambient light bouncing around. Quite often with white floors as well. Yeah, it's pretty hard to just keep it off completely. So yeah. Do you want me to jump out of this? I'm conscious I've sort of commandeered.
Oh no, I think that they've been they're great to look at.
Okay. Well, I guess this is just another tone that was spacewalks, and with spacewalks, I decided to just go really, really, really simple and just have the sun. So that's all single. This is all single source.
Right.
It was. I can't actually honestly remember if it was an 18K. I think it was it may have ended up being a 9K for not being able to get so far away in the studio, but something like an 18 or a 9K. and we just went single source with it, which was great to just sort of simplify things for the space walk. Just wanted as much.
But with terribly handy helmet lights.
Oh yeah. Oh, they were very well designed. Yeah, this is actually it's a recycle of the spacesuit from The Martian. So this was Ridley Scott's Martian suit that we had sort of repurposed.
Just put some new patches on it.
Exactly.
Just took Matt Damon's name off it and put.
Yeah, pretty much. This was a sports bar. It's kind of hard to explain why this is impressive, but this was built on the atrium set, which you saw earlier. Right. So if you see that the sort of peacock teal coloured pillar there, that was the pillar that was around the bar on that first thing I showed you of the lady sitting in.
Right.
And so this whole set was sort of built into the atrium set.
Okay.
So the ceiling, the walls, everything was sort of put into the atrium and then taken away again. So actually, the glass elevator at the back there is the glass elevator from the main set, just repurposed.
Wowzers. Okay.
Yeah. So I thought, just from an art department perspective,
that's amazing. Yeah.
Pretty amazing. Yeah.
So that the column there is that are you saying is that the ribbon? Is that your RGBWW ribbon?
It was, yeah. It was strips of those ribbon lights just run down to and then we had a diffusion inside them to sort of soften it out so you couldn't see the source. And yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So just we are going to take we'll just talk about another couple of things, and then we are going to take some questions. But if you want to, everyone who's listening, who I think everyone is still there, which is lovely. If there's a little Q&A button at the bottom of your screens in your pop-up, hopefully. So if you hit that, I think as attendees, you can put questions in. So it just keeps it separate from the chat. I know there's a couple of questions that popped up in the chat. So yeah, if there's any questions you want to put in there, and I'll try and put them to Eben.
Great.
Okay, cool.
I was going to say, just before I stop screen sharing, this was the thing I showed you earlier. This was a colour board that this was from. We kept this going throughout the shoot. So any new set, any new lighting setup, I'd take one sort of key screen grab from my DIT Sam as we went along. And we just kept sort of putting it into this montage and filling it out. And the idea was to just make sure we were really being as rich and colourful as possible. So we were pretty much on a week by week basis, if there was going to be a new set, we'd sort of look at this and go, we haven't done much green or whatever it is. Genuinely, that's what we were doing. Saying, okay, we haven't done purple yet, so let's go purple and let's do purple. So this was a great. I've actually started doing this on everything now, just to sort of always keep track of what I've done and what I haven't done as well. So
yeah. So actually, interesting talking about DIT. So just how did it work with the DIT on set? And I know that if you briefly talk about. I know that you like to work out some show LUTs before you. So you work with LUTs on set. How does that work? And then tell us a bit about how much post you got to do. And yeah.
Have you still? Am I back on camera now?
You are. Yeah, we're back to you now.
Great. Yeah. So yeah, the way I like to work, I've been lucky with being able to do a bit of pre-shooting on several projects and then taking that footage into the post house and created show LUTs, and I got used to that sort of format, and we've talked about this between us as well, that I like to be able to sort of stand behind what I see on the monitor and say this is it, rather than saying it's going to look better than this because I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. So what I try to do is shoot the closest to real footage as I can in prep, take that into the DIT to the grade. I was with Dan Coles at Technicolor for this, who was great, and we started off with a film emulation LUT and then tried a few tweaks to that and tried a few things and sort of settled on a look. And then it was a case of trying that in different environments. And I was really happy with how it was looking, and that kind of became our show LUT. It was one single LUT we used for, I think, absolutely everything on this show. I think there was only one LUT, I'm pretty sure. There may have been an Earth LUT once upon a time, but I think we ended up not using it. Because, like I say, I like to have a really nice OLED monitor light it and say, this is it. And so, you know, the way workflows are now, I know that everyone at HBO is going to be seeing the dailies with that LUT, and everyone's going to see the same image. So if anything ever comes back and there's any questions, you know, is this too dark? Is this too red, too colorful? I at least know they've seen what I'm standing behind, and I know we're all looking at the same thing. So I've really got into that way of working. And of course, in the grades, we tweak things, but you start from a starting point that usually, you know, we're quite happy with. So everything I've shown you so far, I think tonight, has been with the LUT on it, but it's from, you know, it's from throughout the shoot, so it's ungraded, just with the LUT on. And then, yeah, you know, the grade becomes about, okay, fine tuning, you know, it becomes obviously matching cameras, matching levels if anything's wandered, and then, okay, maybe let's look at the stuff on Earth and let's try something a little different on Earth. And you sort of, it's a great sort of starting point. So I was able to grade the first, I think, 3 episodes in person with Dan at Technicolor. And then for the rest of the show, I was in New Orleans prepping and shooting a movie over there, which I've just finished. And I was long distancing it. So I'd be sent like a 2 gigabyte H.264. We had looked at my iPad to kind of calibrate that, to get that as close as possible. You know, it was pretty good, actually. And I was able to go through and do time-coded notes, and then get a second version, time-coded notes, and sometimes get a third version. So it's a pretty good system. I was able to do long distance.
That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say the problems that I've encountered sometimes is on some of the sometimes on the daily systems, is that once you've had stuff that's gone up and come back down and gone, you know, once it's been through the machine a little bit too much, anything can happen to the color and contrast, and or if sometimes in the offline things are turned up and all sorts of, you know, so it can get a bit hairy. But that's why I'd be sort of slightly
No, I agree with you. I always make a big deal about that. So I always want to do a test. I want to do a pipeline test. And what we found was we were using PIX, which can be bad, actually, if I'm honest. I think Encode and whatever the other one's called, Media, whatever, is better. But PIX is hit or miss. But we did find that if you put it into full HD, and if it wasn't a green screen shot, it was pretty good. It was sort of 95% there. Green screen shot, for whatever reason, something in the way we were processing it was doing horrible things to the color. So I had to kind of say, ignore anything with green screen because it doesn't look like that.
Right, okay.
But yeah, you know, one thing that Sam, my DOT from Digital Orchard, was doing was with daily screen grabs for me. So, you know, full quality screen grabs. So I always had those as well to refer to as a reference. So yeah, we were, you know, we never had any pushback, actually. Like HBO were happy, Armando was happy, and it was always a positive thing. But just, I always like to make sure I've got that as backup, just in case anything comes in, I can say, well, this is exactly what it looks like. So
Had you worked with Dan Coles before?
I hadn't. No, it's the first time. Dan did Veep, so he I'm sure he was probably on the project before me. He's really great. Yeah, really good.
Brilliant. Right, let's we'll just jump to some questions now. There's not hundreds, so that's good. We can we'll make it through all of these. So I've got hello Eben, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking? What's your favorite color? That's not one of the questions. I just think it feels like it's a bit like Swap Shop, this. How old are you, and how did you get your start? Where did you study?
I am 36, I'm pretty sure. I had to think about that for a second, but I'm 36.
A mere boy.
Yeah, so yeah, I've come up the untraditional route. So I studied business studies at university and went down a whole different, you know, idea of what I was going to do with my life. Without doing the whole life story, I ended up in a marketing department shooting corporate videos. That led to doing short films. I did, well, I've done over 100 short films. So my sort of version of film school was, I decided that I want to be a cinematographer. I tried to do the assisting route, and I was too focused on wanting to learn lighting and wanting to shoot things. And I just knew, I sort of decided I'm going to start off as the worst DP in the world, in the UK, but I'm a DP, and I'm going to sort of learn and learn and learn and learn and just keep learning and keep trying things. So I went through a period of shooting short films, shooting every single genre I could find, you know, whatever it was, just to sort of keep shooting and keep learning. And after over 100 shorts, I got my first feature, very low budget, another feature, another feature, another feature, an agent, and I've just sort of kept, to be honest, blagging it since then. You know, that's the way I've done it. It's very much.
I think we've all done that, I think.
But yeah, I did think about going back to film school and doing it that way, but I was just already up and running, and I got lucky with a few things that had turned out pretty well, and you know, it just sort of kept happening and kept going, and I didn't want to. My route was what I did. I just decided this is how I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it my way. And I'm going to. I read, you know, all of the sort of classic cinematography books. I very much did my homework, but I wanted to sort of do things my way rather than potentially learning the correct way to do it. I just thought it would be more interesting to kind of come at it with a different attitude. So yeah,
there is no right way. We're all doing it right, and we're all doing it wrong, I guess.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, that was kind of covered that question as well, and that question's kind of been done. Just what was your, it's one from Harry Fleet, which what was your approach to lighting for VFX and CG action sequences, which including ships, coffins and turds? Did you have much input with the VFX? Yeah.
Yes, so we didn't have any miniatures. So for all of the stuff with the spaceship, that was pure CGI. I mean, Simon, the designer, had mapped out exactly what the ship was. He had a 3D model. He printed this model of the ship. It was a beautiful thing. I just always pushed. It was about communication, really. I wanted it to feel. I wanted it to feel like the sun is in the sky and this ship is moving through the abyss of space, and there's loads of contrast. And I always came at it from the most cinematic, almost realistic, you know, route possible. And then that was just my side of the argument, you know, and, you know, there's obviously other voices, and we sort of came to a solution that everyone was pretty happy with, I think. So yeah, I tried to stay involved as much as possible through prep, but, you know, through post, sorry, but, you know, it can be difficult on other jobs and whatever to, you know, I'm not getting sent daily VFX tests, so it just had to be a kind of clear, this is what I think we should do lighting wise for that sort of stuff. And yeah, I always just said everything I've lit of all the spacewalks is single source. I've just got a sun and nothing else. So if we cut to a wide of the ship and it feels completely different, it'll feel completely different. So
sure.
Yeah.
Very good. Sorry, just got to catch up on these. Just quickly, just one from Mark Lobato. How are you? Interesting to hear a little bit more how you walked the wire of trying to influence the blocking of actors in the midst of. Was there a lot of improv, and how did you? I mean, how do you get to shoot that sort of stuff?
Yeah, loads of improv. I mean, I think in terms of influencing blocking, there's a few tactics I like. One of mine is, you know, when I'm watching a rehearsal take shape, if I start to feel like, okay, the wide from where I'm standing here is going to give me what I think I need for all the angles, and I spot the director is watching from completely the other side of the room, I will try and bring them round to where I want them to watch the rehearsal from, so they start to orientate the scene from that position as well. I think that's a good tip or whatever.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that of, you know, I think what they're doing here works great from here. Occasionally it was, okay, they're doing this here. What do you think if they moved it 10 feet this direction for this benefit? It'll speed us up, yada, yada, yada. You know, that's a conversation. And then I'd also credit my operators a lot. You know, Doug Walsh was ACAM and Steadicam, and he's great working with actors to, you know, once you've got the shape of it, it's just those small little things of just making everything work on a technical level. And I think all my operators were really great for feeding in and just being, you know, it was a very fun shoot, you know, very funny. Everyone was very, very nice. And I think all of my crew had a really difficult technical job to do, and they sort of balanced that really, really well. So I credit my operators a lot for the blocking as well.
Yes. Yeah, well, they have to take a lot of that front end load, especially if you're if there's a lot of lighting or you're trying to work stuff out. That's where operators really stand in, step up. Absolutely. And do wonderful work. That they take a lot of the heavy lifting out for DPs, which is awesome, and we love them for it.
Yeah, I mean, I actually used to be a very much the operating is the soul of what I do as a cinematographer, and I've got to operate, and I always want to operate. And having done Avenue 5, where I didn't touch the camera really, and now I've just done a film in New Orleans for Netflix in the American system, where I wasn't allowed to operate really. I now am completely the other direction. I don't think I'll operate again. I love the freedom now to step back and really concentrate on the lighting and talk with the director and not have to kind of get into the nitty gritty of, is it babies or tools? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Once you sort of work with an operator who's good, who you can trust, they just do so much for you to liberate your time.
Absolutely.
And I've learned that quite recently, so I'm a convert.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, who was one of my first operators? Luke Redgrave was one of my first operators, and Vince McGann. I think Vince is here somewhere. Hello, Vince. Right. And yeah, when you get the opportunity, it was giving you the opportunity to do that, and I remember my first reservations being will they do what I would do? And actually what you realize is that they really quite quickly get into tune with what your approach is, and actually then do both Luke and Vince actually do what I would do, and then add extra to it. So it's a joy to find people like that, that actually it's so valuable, and it adds another level to the whole project. Another there's one from Mark Patton, BSC here, who was what was the director's idea behind having a 360 set? I mean, I mean that sort of goes back to the very beginning really, but how does that, I mean, obviously there's a speed thing, and was it for the benefit of the actors, or could you have done it any other way? I suspect that you probably couldn't.
I don't think we had the time to, but it's also Armando the way Armando works is he's so what am I trying to say? He's brilliant, but he changes his mind very quickly. So we could actually we could be about to shoot on a scene, and he might say, actually, this scene works better over there. And the thing is, he's right, like it's the sort of thing that in theory you could lose your mind over. But the thing with Armando is he's sort of always got the best idea. So quite often it would be, okay, actually, let's do this over here. Or even actually, so one very tiny gripe is the opening shot of episode 1 of Avenue 5 is we push into the spaceship and it's red, and then it changes to a normal color. And after all of these pre-lights and everything else, that was one where Armando said, oh, it'd be cool if the lights were red. And this is before we're about to roll. So it was okay, it's going to go red. So give me 5 minutes,
okay,
change it to red, have a look at it. I guess that's fine. Put in a transition, and then we pushed in, press the button, and it goes from red to neutral. And obviously I'd have loved a bit more time to fine tune that, but the idea was planting a seed for a joke later on. So again, he's right to do it. You've just got to sort of be flexible. So,
well, and obviously you can with that kind of with LED and with kind of wireless DMXing and all those systems that we've got now, is actually the fact that you could do that quickly. I mean, was he surprised by how quickly that happened, or is it just an expected thing now?
It was for random reasons. We ended up shooting that scene like a month or 2 later. I can't, if I'm honest, remember why. We may have introduced a new character to that scene, so it may have been a reshoot or a pickup for that opening shot. I can't exactly remember, but I think by that point he had realised what we'd created that you could just say make that light red and it would take 3 seconds and it's red.
Yeah.
So we'd sort of given him, I guess, that luxury, and he used it, which is what it was for. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, there was a question from earlier that I've misplaced. It's from Ashley Barron. Ashley,
I remember it. Yeah, but yeah.
You remember what that question was? Could you, or maybe Ashley, could you repost it in the Q&A question box up there? That would be.
I think I can remember it. Unless
yeah, go for it if you can.
I'm pretty sure it was about the lighting in episode 9 at the end of the episode, and it was asking.
Oh yes, there we go. I've got it.
Okay.
I've just been handed it to me by a glamorous assistant. How did you decide on fixture placement, and what and where were they for the last scene of Ep 9, where they're arguing about who gets in the shuttle?
Yeah, so that was always, I was worried about that scene because we had, I think, 15 of our main numbered cast in one scene for a 15-minute scene, basically, all talking about it. 360, I knew it was going to be this sort of mass of people running in, running out, this whole thing. And I wanted it to also feel grungy, like the back of the ship. So the real idea there was, it was a box, you know, it was a 4-wall set, was to have hard lighting, backlighting as much as possible, but keeping off of people's faces. So we were arcing, you know, the hard lights so that they'd be catching people from behind, but falling on a hard enough angle so it wouldn't hit the faces of the people in front of them, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah,
so
yeah.
Sort of backlighting all the way around the set, and then side lighting the sky panels in between. So, you know, to be honest, we just took a stab at, okay, let's put a hard light here, there, that, you know, we just took a guess, put some sky panels in, had a pre-light half day, I think, set levels, set colors, and that's what we ended up with. Yeah.
But did you have that? You know, I've done that before, where I actually in the warehouse in Free Fire, is that I didn't have it quite at the beginning. But that was something. It was a large space that I almost had to have lit for 360. But I ended up with a it was a real warehouse with no grid, but just ended up with, it was a 14-foot. There was a ridge 14 foot up, and I ended up with a ring of pups around this entire building. I just then I could. There was always a kicker somewhere, you know, wherever everyone stood. So I guess you either develop that, or if you know that you're stepping into it, then you have. You just try and put a kicker in wherever you can. So at least there's some shape.
It's basically the same thing. I mean, I exactly that. And I would try to turn off the near side hard light.
Yeah.
And quite often I couldn't because
right.
because it was 360. But you know, I would say let's have a wide and let's have 2 other wides either side of it, and let's turn off everything above me so that at least I'm not front lighting for the wides.
So, I mean, did you ever bring in black drapes, or did you ever, you know, even because they're relatively quick to move, or did you not have any of that at all?
Not really. We really did move very quickly.
Wow,
quickly at times. You know, we had 8 to 10 page days.
Wow.
We had crazy days. You know, yeah, I'm sure I did occasionally, but it was rare. Yeah, it was rare. Yeah.
And just quickly then, Thomas Terminates Chupon has asked, how do you go about picking your operators? And I mean, you talked about Doug being your A camera and your Steadicam operator. Who else was there?
So because I've worked my way up the way I described, I've been really lucky with crew, and I've tried to keep crew. You know, if I work with someone I like and who's good, I try to sort of cling on to them. And I've brought up this really great crew with me over the years. So operators, as I said, is a role that I didn't tend to use previously, but Steadicam would be the exception to that. So Doug Walsh was my Steadicam operator 8 years ago or something like that on a film called Confine, and I've worked with him as much as possible since then. But then the idea I had for sort of B and C camera was a little bit unorthodox, because there was going to be some second unit shooting sporadically, and we started talking about the idea of having an operator who could also DP. So what I actually did was sort of speak to a couple of my friends who are also young DPs, who are sort of, you know, rising stars, upcoming, and got them to step in as operators who could also DP for me. So Aaron Rogers, he's with me at Casarotto, been friends for a long time. He came on as sort of a C camera operator who could also be our second unit DP as and when we needed. So initially it was just little VFX elements, but that grew and grew to sort of full scene shooting by the end. Then James Rhodes, the same thing, you know, he's a DP in his own right, absolutely, but came in to sort of operate B camera. And again, he did some DPing at the end when we were double banking in second unit. And then I always made sure we had a second Steadicam operator. So Mihalis started off as our Steadicam operator for that. He had to leave at one point, and then we replaced him, I think initially with Stamos for a while, and then it was Andrew Bainbridge, I want to say his name is. Sorry, Andy, if you're watching. And several other dailies who came in.
Right.
So, yeah, I had a core team of 4, and the focus pullers and the loaders below that I've worked with for years as well.
Yeah, it's a big old team, lots and lots of people.
Lots of people, yes. Yeah. Yes, electricians.
Did you do any? I know you've done it before. Did you do any gimbal work at all?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we had a movie on. We ended up not using it too much, actually. I'm not sure that will come back for season 2, but because we had Steadicam, because we had, you know, Doug or Andy, Stamos, Mihalis, we could always jump on Steadicam, and quite often we'd have 2 Steadicams going at the same time if it was that kind of a scene. So at that point, the movie became, you know, we didn't use it too much actually in the end. Occasionally we'd use it as a remote head. Occasionally there'd be a sort of a handover or clever shot, but they were quite rare. So yeah, not too much.
Is that movie yours?
It used to be, but it burnt in the fire. So
oh shit. So yes, let's briefly to sort of to wrap it up. Let's it's heartbreaking. Can you just tell us a little bit about the incident that happened at Leavesden?
Yeah.
And actually what sort of effect it had on the show? Yeah,
sure. So our big set at Leavesden, the one that I showed the pre-light for previously, it's the P stage. So I think it's 250 feet by 100 feet by 150, something like that. It's huge. We had about, I want to say 6 weeks to go on the shoot. We had 3 episodes to shoot, so maybe it was 2 months to go. And yeah, I woke up at 5 a.m. To a text message saying, there's been a fire, please don't come to work today. Turned out that there'd been a fire. We don't actually know what happened, why, but the entire set caught fire. It burned for 15 hours. The sprinklers were on that entire time, so not just the damage from the smoke and the flames, the water, you know, as you saw, it's a very sealing set, so that water was, you know, wreaking havoc as well. Apparently when they opened the door, there was like 2 feet of water that poured out from the stage or whatever. So really a disaster. It completely decimated our biggest set, which, yeah, you know, initially felt like a really big problem, but actually we only had 1 day off. We came straight back in the day after that. Right. We were lucky to have other sets and other stages, so we could sort of carry on working. And we were also lucky to have great writers who just very quickly looked at what we had coming up, and they just restaged everything. The fortunate thing was we shot slightly out of sequence. We had already shot episode 8 and used the atrium, and so we had episodes 7, 9, and 10 to go. So 10 was lost, and so it became 7 and 9. We had to shoot without the atrium, but because 8 featured the atrium, you know, it kind of felt like it wouldn't be there, then it's back, and then it wouldn't be there. So I hope people wouldn't actually notice. And I think, like most things, you know, nobody was hurt, is the first thing to say. Everything was insured. So, you know, I don't want to say it was a good thing, but it did force us to be more creative. It opened up new sets. It sent us out on location, and it probably gave us a richer, you know, palette. Right. Whereas otherwise we always would have had this big atrium set that's just easy to walk into and use. So they're in the process of rebuilding it, or they were before the shutdown for season 2. But it was pretty devastating at the time.
Which actually is Stephen Murphy, BSC's asked a question. If you I don't know if anyone's talked to you about season 2, would you consider doing it? Have you been talking to them about that, or would you change anything? Would there be plans to change anything, do you think?
Yeah, so I I've been offered season 2, and it's very much my intention to do at least the pilot. So because of the burn, I do feel like I want to kind of re-establish, because so much of the work was setting up that atrium, and now it's completely gone. And yeah, I mean, like, creatively, I always like to kind of move forward and try new things. So if I'm honest, I wouldn't normally want to do a season 2, or like I've been lucky in my CV that I've always done season 1, episode 1. I've always established things, because that's how I know how to work. I know how to work with directors and create. I don't think I'm the sort of DP who could slot in and carry on someone else's work. I'm just not wired like that, or whatever. So for this, I just thought it would be great if I came back, did the pilot for season 2, set it up again, and then handed it over to 1 or 2 more DPs to kind of carry on. So that's the current plan. But with what's happened in the world,
sure.
Who knows? I mean, I was due to start prep, I think, in 4 weeks, but who knows now? So yeah, it's very much my hope to do season 2, episode 1 at least. Yeah.
And I guess I'm not sure. I don't know. It depends on what the writing is. But if you've got a restart, that's the thing with the sitcom, is that actually not many things do change, do they? And what you need to set up is that same situation. Yeah. So I guess like you say, it does make total sense to go in and rebuild that principal set, because it needs putting back to the way it was. That makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
And just a quick last question from Oliver Curtis, BSC. How challenging was it to maintain a consistency of focal length for different types of shots, given the multi-camera setup? A single character close-up or a 2-shot? Presume occasionally a wide shot would develop into a close-up. How much of that was there? Or was it, or there's always a formula to that sort of coverage, which is relative, which is fast and practical, where you sort of, like you said, you were doing 3 or 4 wides. Did you often then develop into, I've not seen the entire series, did you do a lot of developing?
We didn't do too much developing, no. No. Okay, we tried to occasionally, but not really, no. I mean, usually I love to sort of get philosophical about lens choice. I love to sort of talk about, this feels like wide and close for these reasons, and I love to visual storytell and use lenses properly. I think on a show like this, there's a practical side to things that's hard to avoid. We had 2 sets of Summicrons across 4 cameras, so you could have 2 50s and 2 75s at the same time, for example. So there was always, I think you fall into patterns. It would be, okay, we like how wides are feeling on the 29 and the 21. And at the same time, let's throw on a 40 for a medium wide. And you kind of get into those patterns where it's like, that feels like what the show is. And then, I'd say the 40 mil came out quite a lot. That just felt like our show. We didn't really get wide and close, and we tried to avoid anything too telephoto. So, from sort of 29 to 75 was really the show. And then partly it was practical. How do we slot these all in and not see each other? It just had to be at times. And then at other times it was like, okay, this moment means this, and so we should be here on this lens. So, back of my mind, it was always visual storytelling. What can I do to just add to the visual storytelling? But there was very much a practical element that we talked about as well that was unavoidable.
And you had how many directors were there?
7, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so it sounds like you were doing, I think you told me before, is that it sounds like quite an American system, in that you were, Armando stayed there, didn't he? He was there throughout, even if he wasn't directing.
Yeah. The classic setup was Armando had his monitor, the director had their monitor in the middle, and then I had my monitor on the other side. So the 3 of us would always be there. So Armando, everyone loves and respects him so much that we didn't have any directors who were trying to come in and change everything. And that can happen.
Mark,
that can happen. And obviously everybody wants their episode to be the best, and that's great because you can approach every episode as, honestly, let's try and make this episode the best, and it does reinvigorate you as a DP, I think. But Armando did say he wanted me to kind of protect the image. He wanted to make sure, it was my job to make sure we had a consistency throughout. Which was great, but like I say, the directors were very much on board with that. So it was a different way of working in a lot of ways. It was they could very much concentrate on the actor's performance and the words, and almost come to me and say, well, what do you think? And it would be like, well, you know, this is kind of what we do. We'd probably do this and do this and do this. What do you think? And sounds great. And we'd go. So yeah, it was good. All of them were great.
Did you enjoy making it?
Very much. Yeah. I mean, that was the main thing. I mean, you know, I think what we do as DPs is stressful. I really do. I think we bear the weight of a lot of responsibility, and a lot of the time we feel like no one knows that. Do you know what I mean? And on this one in particular, it was such a funny set with such incredible improv, and the actors are just, there wasn't a bad person there. It was absolutely amazing. And I became the butt of a lot of jokes in the best possible way. I mean, a lot of the pre-roll where they were doing vocal warm-up exercises, I told them that my wife found those funny when we were watching the rushes, so suddenly they became all about me. You know, there's that kind of thing that's constantly going on, that as stressful as, I think all the stress was self-imposed, is kind of what I'm trying to say. I wanted to make sure I was doing something I could stand behind and was interesting, with all of this sort of adversity stopping me from doing it, essentially. But then I'd sort of get pulled out of that little bubble by an actor being incredibly funny, and it was really, really fun. I think for my crew in particular, it was one of the most fun jobs they've done, so it was great.
Eben Bolter BSC, thank you so much for joining us and for giving us all that was amazing behind the scenes stuff, and for being the first person on our inaugural Zoom Q&A, which I think has worked a treat. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all of our audience. We've still got a few of you left, which is very exciting. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to do this again, hopefully, because seems to have worked so far. So thank you ever so much, Eben. Stay safe and stay healthy.
You too. Everyone else as well.
And to everyone out there, stay safe and healthy, and I hope you've enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
Cheers, Laurie.
Cheers.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.